Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Life Show. Happy Friday, everybody. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. It's a great day to be great, and it's a great day to break down the Thursday night football action and every single injury-relevant news that you need to know ahead of what should be an eventful Week 3. So joining me as he does every single Friday morning, the one, the only Fantasy Life Director of Analytics, Dwain, The Rock McFarland. Dwain, Jets, Jets.
Jets, Elliot Chris, our CEO. I'm just so happy for him, Ian. It's been a rough, I don't know, probably lifetime for Elliot.
Rough.
Yeah, and another rough. But yeah, it's good to see for the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, man, out there just layering the field, getting out of the pocket. I mean, man, what else could you ask for? That was a great performance. Look, the Patriots defense is not very good, but still the underlying things that we saw there with Rodgers. And this isn't on the show sheet, so I'm going to get it in real quick. Still don't panic on Garrett Wilson, Ian. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, if you saw him afterwards, he said, and he gave the wink, it's going to be special once me and Garrett Wilson get on the same page. Here's the beauty. He has a 29% target share, and they're not even on the same page yet. And Aaron Rodgers has said the whole goal of every defense they've faced so far has been to take away Garrett Wilson. And he's still leading the team with a 29% target share. So, look, they're ironing out the kinks, the back shoulder fades, all those sort of timing things, Ian. That takes a little bit of time to build that sort of rapport with your wide receiver. But I would say Garrett Wilson's still a premier hold or buy low candidate.
Love the second half of that quote, too, from Rodgers, where he said it's been Mel Kiper's worst nightmare, a lot of cover, too. So, Dwain, it is one of those things where I'm with you. I am not terrified, of starting Garrett Wilson in the future. I really do think it's going to come around. But one, could the man change his freaking jersey already? Clearly, these sleeves are causing some problems out there. And two, it really just has been a tough stretch of opposing defenses. I mean, we look at what he's been having to deal with so far. Obviously, caught some shadow treatment from Christian Gonzalez last night. And, man, moving forward, they get the Broncos and Pat Surtain next week. After that, it's Brian Flores' blitz-happy Vikings defense. Another tough spot against the Bills, then the Steelers, then the Patriots. But, even freaking Derek Stingley and the Texans on October 31st. So, look, Garrett Wilson's a great player. So is Aaron Rodgers, obviously. I'm not saying those are all going to be busts for him by any stretch of the imagination, but Dwain, could be a situation where, maybe Garrett's producing a bit more like a wide receiver too, but hopefully by November, we are seeing the man going off on a more, weekly basis out there. So maybe not what you're hoping for out of, again, your first round pick, but I would just be patient for the time being, even though I admit it is tough to look up at the stat sheet and see that Allen Lazard has the same amount of yards and 2 extra touchdowns after 3 weeks of action. But Dwain, the big, I guess, more actionable note here is that the Jets backfield, not so much the one-man show these days. Breece Hall and Braylon Allen both getting plenty of touches. Breece wound up with 20, so it's not like he's not getting the football, but seeing 14 totes of the football from Braylon Allen, pretty surprising out there, Dwain. So is this truly becoming more of a 1A, 1B situation, or was GameScript doing most of the talking on Thursday night?
I still see it as a 1-2. I mean, look, Breece Hall still has a 71% snap share in each of the last 2 games. Guys, that's elite. That is elite. He had an 8.9 utilization score yesterday, a 9.3 the week before. Week 1, when he had the whole backfield to himself, it was a 9.6. So is Braylon Allen going to keep Breece Hall from being someone that's going to break fantasy in 2024? Yes. Is Braylon Allen going to keep Breece Hall from being worth the pick you spent on him as a top 5 player? No, absolutely not. Breece Hall right now, dude, he's got 20.3, 24.4, and 18.3 fantasy points per game. What else do you freaking people want? The dude's averaging 21 fantasy points. He's got 66% route participation. He's got a 28% targets per route run, leading to a 21% target share. This dude is getting over half the rushing attempts, and he has a 20% target share. They're designing things for him. They're moving him out wide. They're getting him in motion. This is a player that they clearly see being more along the archetype of an Alvin Kamara, being more along the archetype of a CMC, with the type of matchups they're trying to dial up for him. So, man, I'm not worried about it at all. The only blemish is if you didn't have Braylon Allen, Breece Hall could be a player that could break fantasy. He could be CMC, from last year, 2-3 years ago, whenever CMC could put up 400 fantasy points in a season. So that's off the table for you right now with Braylon Allen doing what he's doing. And by the way, hat tip to Braylon Allen. He looks fantastic. This dude looks absolutely incredible. Great vision, great patience, great power, great acceleration. Don't know that he has the long speed, but all the worries about speed that a lot of folks have with him don't really seem to be there. So yeah, hat tip to Braylon Allen as well, but I think on the Breece Hall stuff, it's definitely not a downgrade. It's just you're not going to break fantasy with Breece Hall, with Braylon Allen doing what he's doing.
Yeah, my comp for Braylon Allen's rushing style is a haunted runaway shopping cart. That dude looks like a nightmare to try to get down on the ground in the open field. So I'm with you, Dwain, in terms of not worrying about Breece Hall too much, because at the end of the day, if we were drafting tomorrow for the whole season, I think Breece Hall would still be the 101. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think he would be too. I'm seeing a lot of people say, nah, it'd be Saquon. And I get it. There's other people that, folks would look at. No. Give me the young player with an absolute alpha target earning profile without a quarterback that's going to steal touchdowns, right? And right now, the Jets offense is pretty closely graded in my mind to what we're seeing from Philadelphia. I think they're pretty close. They're two good offenses, not great offenses. We'll see what the future holds for them as defenses try to adapt their game plans. But yeah, Breece Hall, saying that he's anything other than a top 2 to 3 pick is, I think that would really be stretching it. And for me, I am with you right now. He would be my number 1 pick overall if we drafted today.
And obviously different, philosophies from those two offenses in terms of what to do once they get to the 1 yard line. That said, Aaron Rodgers, just like Tom Brady before him, it does seem to be quite the fan of, again, getting some pass attempts off when they get to the goal line. It was cool to see, though, Garrett Wilson make a nice play, get down to 2, and the very next snap, Rodgers threw maybe his single best, dart of the night to Wilson to get him across the goal line and into the end zone. So good stuff there from the Jets. Dwain, though, not so good for the Patriots. 139 total yards of offense, 61 passing, and 78 rushing. Jets end up winning the time possession battle 40-20. So Ramondre Stevenson, I believe with the fumble, had 0.3 fantasy points. Don't want to say we told you so, Dwain, but yeah, hope you sold high in the guy.
Yeah, and look, Ramondre obviously hurt his hand on the face mask, so that's part of what's occurring here. So we don't want to victory lap it too much. I'd like to see. We don't want to see anyone fail, but what I was about to say was I would like to see what Ramondre did on the 70%. It still wasn't going to be good, and it would have really been more of a supporting the argument we've been making, which is, look, you're just not going to be in scoring position very often, even if Ramondre's getting the ball all the time. And once defenses decide that, look, this wide receiver core is completely cooked. Most people can't even name two Patriot wide receivers. And we know that Hunter Henry, while he might end up being the focal point, he doesn't scare defenses. So what are you going to do? You're going to take away Ramondre Stevenson. We also had a banged up offensive line last night for the Patriots, but we knew overall the big issue here is the quality of offense for the Patriots. And that was ultimately going to push Ramondre Stevenson down to running back 2 territory. So while the injury was a factor, I think overall you could still see what we were scared about. You saw it last night when a team decided to really commit to stopping that run game for the Patriots. And what did we get? We had a terrible performance. They were not in scoring position hardly at all the entire game, and that's going to make it challenging for Ramondre. So hopefully you guys were able to sell high, because even though maybe you could argue, Ramondre might still be good if you played the whole game, your league mates aren't going to care. They're just going to see that he scored 2.3 fantasy points, and it's going to be harder to move him for what you were getting yesterday, like Mike Evans or Marvin Harrison Jr.
Pop Douglas, really the only redeeming New England Patriot last night, caught 7 balls for 69 yards. Nice on a team high 9 targets. So route rates were pretty much all over the place, Dwain. Hunter Henry down to 63%, Austin Hooper at 46%. We did get a Drake May drive at the end, which was shocking. He could have gotten hurt out there, Dwain. Why would they ever play Drake May? He could get injured. I just can't believe that. But KJ Osborne, Pop Douglas, 77%, 86% route rates. Jalen Polk at 49% after we thought he was coming on, because Dwain, when you can get Tyquan Thornton and Kayshon Boutte 34% route rates, got to go out there and do it. So yeah, most likely answer to who to start out of this Patriots offense moving forward. Absolutely no. Do not do it if you can at all help yourself. So that's pretty much the main gist of things. But Dwain, one thing you can victory lap is another strong performance from your sicko starts. You might just have to start renaming that to your must starts. I know it might still seem sick, but man, it's working out for you. Aaron Rodgers and Tyler Conklin both coming through big in the box score. Again, Rodgers 281 yards and a pair of touchdowns through the air. Tyler Conklin 5 catches, 93 yards on 6 targets with a once again elite 95% route rate. So yeah, Dwain, bravo, kudos, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Look, we're always looking at what the underlying data points are telling us, and that's the key, right? And when we looked at Tyler Conklin, it's look, guys, the guy's getting as many routes as Hunter Henry. He's getting as many routes as Zach Ertz. The targets just haven't necessarily happened yet, and there's not anyone behind Garrett Wilson that's just hogging targets. The next closest guy you could argue is really Breece Hall. And so Conklin has shown like this is a 17 to 18% target share kind of guy. Like whenever you give him a full-time role, so you just do the math. You're like, okay, if he's going to be out there that much, like he's going to eventually start getting his targets. And that makes him a low-end tight end one. So it just hit this week. We like the matchup with the Patriots, so it worked out. And then Aaron Rodgers, that was honestly just more watching him play those first two games. He was doing a lot of the stuff he did last night, minus the outside the tackle box stuff, right? Escaping, but the accuracy was already there, and you could just see Rodgers was really starting to get his groove with the offense. And the Patriots, look, they've got Gonzo out there. He's a guy that you can shadow, but they don't have a ton as far as, being able to really keep a lot of pressure on the quarterback, which is the type of defense that Aaron Rodgers just has a tendency to carve up in.
Final note here, Dwain, would just be some not great uses from Mike Williams. We saw him go from 19% routes to 73% from weeks 1 to 2. Seemed like he was ready to take that full-time role. Back down to 55%, though, because Allen Lazard going out there and making the most out of his opportunities, to be fair, even though his, undershirt's getting freaking ripped away from his body. But Xavier Gibson also getting some run out there. So Mike Williams, look, he had a couple contested catch situations that I think in the future could have come down with and had a much bigger, box score. But is Mike someone, Dwain, for people with bye weeks coming along and maybe a short bench, do you think he still needs to be stashed right now?
It just depends on how deep your league is. Like if you're playing in a deeper league, I would say, look, Aaron Rodgers looks great. And if it's just a health thing that's really keeping Mike Williams in a rotation here, then you're going to want to have him probably later, in the season. But there is a chance, Ian, that this rotation just sticks because they don't run 3 wide receivers all the time. There's a lot of plays where they're running 2. They want to go with more of a heavy set, for their run game. And so whenever you look at Mike Williams, the challenge is Allen Lazard is playing good. Like I had to pause for dramatic effect because folks know, like I haven't always been like the biggest Allen Lazard fan, but guys understand it's always been what Ian talks about is talking about draft season. Hate the ADP, right, not the player. And there were years where Allen Lazard, people were steaming him up into rounds 5 and 6 of drafts. And it's like, okay, guys, like we've kind of lost our way. Just because a receiver is going to be on the field doesn't mean that they are going to be a hit, even if they have Aaron Rodgers. Marquise Valdes-Scantling, same kind of argument a couple of years ago with Patrick Mahomes. So not trying to, we're getting away from crapping on Allen Lazard. I'm just going to say he looks really good right now. Like he's making the most of his opportunities is what you said earlier. He's not demanding all the targets, but he's playing good enough that it could keep this as a rotation for Mike Williams. And then that is going to be a problem. That would eventually make Mike Williams a guy that we just have to say, okay, we're not going to have on our fantasy rosters at all, even in deeper leagues.
Team high 137 passer rating when Lazard has been targeted this year. So to Dwayne's point, good things happening when they're throwing him the football. Wouldn't be surprising if they, again, keep doing that. So that was your Thursday Night Football recap. We got tons of injury stuff to go through, guys. But first, a quick word to our friends over at Experian. Experian is to your finances what FantasyLife is to your fantasy league. It is a tool and resource designed to make your life easier. The Experian app is accordingly free to download and serves as a one-stop shop for managing your financial health. With so many spending and subscription details to track, let Experian handle it for you. They'll help you find and cancel your unwanted or forgotten subscriptions, helping you save money and focus on what really matters, winning your fantasy league. Download the Experian app today. Just note results will vary. Not all subs are eligible. Savings not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required, and see Experian.com for details. All right, Dwayne. Quarterback land. We got a couple banged up signal callers, and the most notable, because we're not exactly sure if he's actually go out there and start, is Packers QB1 Jordan Love, obviously still battling through the knee injury. A pair of limited practices to start this week. Now, last Sunday, Rap Sheet told us that it looked like week 5 was going to be the potential return date, but yesterday, Adam Schefter from a source said, I definitely wouldn't be surprised if he plays this week. It's definitely day by day, like he said, and 50-50 at best right now. So sounds like a true game time decision, Dwayne. And I'm checking the schedule right now to see when they play on Sunday, and it is 1 o'clock Eastern. So it's not a situation where we got to worry about the 4:30 or the Sunday night game going on against the Titans. Not the world's easiest matchup with what we've seen from them so far, but overall thoughts on Jordan Love really, beating a timeline that we thought was going to be much longer.
Yeah, right now, all of my projections are assuming still that Malik Willis is going to play. And I'm not really changing that. I still think that we're going to get another week without Jordan Love. I think Malik Willis did enough last week to say, okay, what's the long-term view we need to have for this player and for our season, if I'm the Packers. Now, that doesn't mean that like what I think is going to prevail. We could see Jordan Love out there. And I will say this, Ian, if Jordan Love plays, I'm going to upgrade all these wide receivers. I know Malik Willis came out there and did his thing last week, and there's a lot. It was great. Like, we have a player that's been terrible, like, for his small NFL career, to see him come out there and play well, but still, it was a very limited passing game. Like, this is not something where they're wanting to throw the ball a lot. Essentially, the Colts handed them that game. The Colts couldn't stop the run. Like, the one thing they needed to do and make Malik Willis prove that he could beat them, they came out of the gate and let Josh Jacobs get hot. The Titans aren't going to do that. The Titans are going to put the clamps on Josh Jacobs if Malik Willis is under center, and they're going to make him beat them. Now, the Packers have the receivers to do it, so we're not saying Malik couldn't do it. But historically, we've just seen that Malik is not good when you put him into a situation where he's got to drop back and throw the ball a lot. So that means all these Packers wide receivers, Jaden Reed, we'd be looking at as a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside. He's a wide receiver 4 right now. So if Jordan Love is declared eligible to play in this game, I'm moving all these Packers wide receivers up. Not quite to pre-injury levels, because I still think you're going to see the Packers try to have a more conservative game approach, even if Love is under center, to kind of protect that knee. But it would boost all of these players. I also have Josh Jacobs as a fade this weekend, because I don't think the Titans make the same mistake. When I say fade, guys, doesn't mean he's completely out of your lineup. He just gets to a spot where it might be an interesting decision if, let's say, you've got another really good running back 2 on your roster, but he's a downgrade for the weekend. So all those things go away for the most part. If Jordan Love is under center, I'll be moving those players back up the ranks.
Can't say enough good things about LaFleur's game plan to go get that victory. Yeah. I mean, they went from a 65% pass play rate in week 1, Dwain, to 27% in week 2, easily the lowest mark. And honestly, like, if we had the ability to see just the lowest pass play rates in a single week over the past 5-10 years, that would be up there for sure. I'm sure some of those, who was the freaking Bears coach of Mitch Trubisky that first year, we'd have a couple games, going on where I think it might be lower. But again, very much run first strategy. And also, Dwain, 94% shift motion rate, before the snap last week for the Packers, easily the highest in the NFL as well. So Josh Jacobs, I'm with you. Not exactly expecting him to be able to take on those, I don't know what nickname we want to give those pair of awesome defensive tackles the Titans got going. We'll workshop that for a bit. But yeah, certainly a situation that you don't need to be going out of your way to, as long as Malik Willis is under center. Good news, though, is that Jordan Love, again, seemingly will be back sooner rather than later. The 2 other injuries we got going on at quarterback, Dwain, Justin Herbert with an ankle. Started the week off with a DNP, was able to get in a limited session on Thursday. And then Russell Wilson still dealing with that calf injury and accordingly still limited. So Justin Fields once again expecting to start. From what I can kind of gather, Dwain, it seems like Justin Herbert's going to play, albeit perhaps in a more limited fashion than usual.
Yeah, and he's been getting a few extra carries here and there in this offense. I think those sort of things go away. The thing we really need to see, from Herbert is just like him get into a groove. And I worry, like, does he have the receivers to truly ever click in any kind of way in this passing attack? I do think teams have to respect the run enough, Ian, right now for the Chargers that it could eventually open some things up for Herbert. But ultimately, he's got to be healthy. So I don't think there's a lot to do here as far as like what I'm doing with the ranks. I am assuming that Justin Herbert's going to play. I'm assuming that he's essentially going to be what he has been as a passer. Just took his rushing attempts down a little bit, which moves him down the ranks a little bit.
Chargers right now only implied for 17.25 points. That is tied with the Broncos for the 3rd lowest mark, of this week's slate of options. So, Panthers in week 2, Raiders in week 1 certainly got by there. But Dwain, had an article go up on FantasyLife.com today where I do mention that J.K. Dobbins, the RB4 in fantasy, might be someone you want to sell high on, at this point in time. So I love the guy, Dwain. Great story. But yeah, I don't know if he's going to keep averaging 9.9 yards per carry in an offense that we don't exactly love. Call me a hater. So let's keep on talking about some running backs, because we got some big names not practicing out there. Namely, Dwain, Kenneth Walker, still unable to make it back on the practice field as he continues to deal with that oblique injury. So we know the Zach Charbonnet experience hasn't been great in terms of efficiency, but man, Dwain, anytime you have a running back legit having a snap rate starting with the number 9, pretty tough to keep him on the fantasy bench.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Charbonnet last week, he wasn't hyper efficient, but it's what we talked about. He's a jack of all trades. He wasn't leaving the field on pass downs. He wasn't leaving the field once they got inside the 5-yard line. And those two things alone, Ian, even if you have like a 50-yard rushing day and you average 3.3 yards per carry, if you're on an offense that can move the ball and get you down into scoring position, or have you in a game where you're in the 2-minute offense and you can suddenly collect some of those check down passes as the defense try to take away the deep area of the field, you can go from having 7 or 8 fantasy points to suddenly having 17 or 18. And that's exactly what we saw with Charbonnet last week. If you were looking at your box score at halftime, you were thinking, oh man, I was looking at it and thinking, man, I recommended Zach Charbonnet as a high end running back too. And we care about what we actually recommend to people, and we're really trying to do the right thing. So I was looking at it and I was staying patient, but I was like, man, I really thought the box score would look better than that. But in the end, it all came through. Why? Because he doesn't leave the field, and we have a decent quality offense. We're still, we're not for sure what the Seahawks are going to be completely on offense this year, but they're at least an average unit. And that, with a player on the field all the time, is typically going to be good. So you're looking at a mid-range running back 2 again this week, Ian, if we don't have Kenneth Walker. But just know, if he happens to run hot in the efficiency, which can come and go so quickly, folks, depending on the game plan of the other team and just some small breaks in the way the game works out, like he can be a running back 1. He could be a guy that could come out and be a top 3 running back on the slate.
Certainly a winnable matchup this week against a banged-up Dolphins defense that we saw get absolutely fleeced by James Cook and company last Thursday night. So, yeah, just 2.3 yards per carry from Charbonnet this year. That is objectively horrible. But you know what, Dwayne? Kyron Williams is right down there at 2.5. Javonte Williams is down there even lower at 2.1. And guess what? Especially in Kyron's case, not exactly shooting him down outside the top 30 RBs because why? That sweet, sweet volume, which at least for one more week, it does seem like Charbonnet will have. Another guy who could suddenly have a lot of volume. We'll see how the efficiency goes. Texans RB3, Cam Akers, because the RB1, Joe Mixon, is still not practicing with an ankle injury. And the RB2, Dameon Pierce, has been sidelined since the end of last week with a hamstring issue himself. So, look, Dwayne, we should see some Dario Gumbawale out there on pass downs. But right now, if you had to set a projection for total touches for Cam Akers, I'm guessing it'd be north of 15.
Yeah, I mean, I've already updated my projections for Cam Akers. I'm leaning pretty hard into the fact, just seeing the injury last week for Mixon, and then looking at Dameon Pierce still not practicing with a hamstring, and the fact that he hasn't been very good. I'm already assuming that Cam Akers is going to get the majority of work here. I've moved him to my running back 22 overall for the week, so that's going to make him a low end running back 2. You do have a situation where the Vikings, it's a boom bust kind of thing. Ian. They're very willing to load the box. They're willing to play a lot of man coverage. That can make things tough on running backs. Number one, it takes away targets. Okay, because if a linebacker is immediately in space on a swing pass kind of thing, the quarterback's not going to throw it. Most targets to running backs are coming underneath the coverage against zone. So we know that the Vikings, now they're not completely man heavy, but they do like to blitz a lot. That could hurt Akers. The other thing is they're willing to stack the box. So when they stack the box, that can make it tougher to find those running lanes for Akers. Now, Akers has looked really good in the preseason. He looked good on his few carries that he had last week until he had the fumble. I agree with you. I think Dario Ogunbowale takes the passing down work, and that's why he doesn't get the same treatment as Zach Charbonnet in the ranks. That's why you're going to find Charbonnet closer to being like that low or that high end running back 2. Akers on the other end of the scale being a low end running back 2. But still, that's something that most of your league mates probably aren't going to know. They're probably going to be looking at Cam Akers thinking he's a running back 3. No, on a team like the Texans, you can score a lot of touchdowns. And so there's the potential here for Akers to punch in 2 scores, Ian, and I think that's where he ultimately makes his hay. The one other thing I'll say about these stacked boxes, it does open up the opportunity for big plays. So if you get past that first line of defense, you can rip off a 50, 60-yard chunk play. And that's ultimately how Akers ends up having a running back 1 game this weekend, is if he does punch in a couple of those scores and breaks a couple of long plays as the Vikings basically, dare them, to hand the ball off to him.
Dwayne, I want to get to a question from a loyal listener at CPAT Duke Johnson Goats Legends. Oh, cool username.
Wow.
Would you start Cam
No
Akers or Zamir White,
this.
Dwayne? Yeah, this definitely isn't my question, but Cam Akers or Zamir White? Maybe it's in an 8-man league with a bunch of old college friends. I don't know. Who would you go with there?
I would go with Akers, just because I like the Texans. It's really close. Like, I haven't even looked at where I have them compared to one another in my ranks. I better make sure that I'm answering.
You have
this
Akers
the right
RB 22 and Zamir RB 26.
Oh, so yeah, I did answer it correctly. But what I would say I lean into is a potential shootout environment between the Vikings and between the Texans, and I just overall think that Cam Akers plays on a better offense, right? I think that Cam Akers also looks more explosive than what I've seen from Zamir White. Zamir White's been more impressive than what people think, I believe. But when I watched Cam Akers, man, I was just like, this guy looks really good. Kind of reminds me of what we just talked about, J.K. Dobbins. That's what Cam Akers reminds me of. Probably doesn't still have the long speed, Ian, but great acceleration, great patience, power through the hole, making cutbacks. Look, these two guys are the poster boys now for the Achilles recovery. So yeah, with Akers, I would go with him over Zamir White.
A couple other names, DeAndre Swift, Devin Singletary, Najee Harris, Jerome Ford. I think we're just leaning to the better offense with Cam Akers, right, Dwain?
Yeah. Yep.
Good stuff there. And again, you guys can check out our updated Fantasy Life rankings ahead of Sunday, always on FantasyLife.com. So again, those are the two big injuries, but a handful of other ones I wanted to quickly run through. Browns running back Pierre Strong Jr. looking like he's going to be out this week, not practicing with a hamstring injury. So that three-pronged backfield seemingly down to two, just Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman. Practicing in full, Vikings running back Aaron Jones and Falcons running back Tyler Algier. I will say, guys, Algier is one of these players where if you do see him on the waiver wire, you definitely could have someone worse stashed on your bench because, again, just one injury or one Bijan winning the lotto ticket away from being on the cover of every single waiver wire article in the industry. Some limited practices to keep an eye on, but again, because they've been limited all week, probably not that big of an issue. Packers running back Josh Jacobs with a back injury. LaFleur already said it's just more maintenance than anything. Bucs running back Rashad White dealing with that groin. Make sure you guys keep an eye on Bucky Irving as well. Dolphins running backs Raheem Mostert with a chest and Jeff Wilson with an oblique. Wilson actually got up to a full practice on Thursday, so it seems like Mostert is a bit more, of an iffy for Sunday. That said, Devin Achane, I think, is the only one we're really confident in starting regardless of the status of those two players. Titans running back Tajay Spears did get into limited practice on Thursday and is on the record saying he will be playing this week. Jaguars running back Tank Bigsby and Bears running back Travis Homer also limited for, again, just trying to project the overall RB1 volume purposes. So that was the running back news. And now a quick word to our friends over at DraftKings. A chill in the air, leaves falling to the ground, and football every weekend. That is what fall is about, and you can make each weekend even more exciting by getting into the action with our partners over at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet on touchdowns. And right now, all new customers who bet $5 will instantly get $200 in bonus bets. All you got to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using our promo code FANTASYLIFE. The crown is yours. And yeah, guys, $200 in bonus bets instantly, and stay in on the action. Use that $200 in bonus bets to bet anytime touchdowns on DraftKings. After all, DraftKings is the place to bet touchdowns. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use our promo code FANTASYLIFE and bet just $5 on any wager to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code FANTASYLIFE only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Moving right along to wide receiver, Dwain got some big names, but actually got some good news here for once. The injury gods are finally, not being complete dickheads to us. So first of all, Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson with the quad injury, back-to-back limited practices, but is on the record saying he for sure will play Sunday. So Dwain, it's not 100% hit rate when players say during the week that they're going to end up suiting up over the weekend or anything. But again, the fact he is practicing in a limited fashion while his teammate Jordan Addison is not, and just kind of the steady stream of good updates from, Kevin O'Connell throughout the week, I do expect to see Justin Jefferson out there. And guess what? When Jettis is out there, we are starting him with confidence in fantasy football land.
Yeah, we're starting him. Not a lot to talk about with Jefferson. Like the quad thing makes you potentially just keep him behind it. When we do our ranks, we're like, okay, we'll go with Jamar Chase against the Commanders and CeeDee Lamb. We'll rank them ahead of Justin Jefferson this week. But otherwise, like, you're feeling great about Jefferson. The big thing, right, obviously, is just watching the pregame warmups, Ian. That's the phase you got to make through, and where we've seen players feel really good about what's going to happen for the weekend, and then they suffer a setback. So just keep an eye on that early that morning. The other thing that it really has implications on is the way this game plays out. All right, we want Justin Jefferson on the field to have to really keep the Texans pushing the ball and wanting to throw the ball to their wide receivers. And then additionally, Sam Darnold. If you don't have Justin Jefferson for some reason, Sam Darnold becomes unstartable in fantasy versus if you have Justin Jefferson, he's a borderline QB1 this weekend.
Sam Darnold, someone that I have ranked as my QB 16. Dwain as his QB 15, the two highest marks among our consensus rankers, ahead of guys like Geno Smith, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, Gardner Minshew, Caleb Williams, amongst others. So also, Dwain, we have not CeeDee Lamb. Well, he is doing good, but T. Higgins is back at practice with that hamstring injury. Obviously missed the first 2 weeks of practice and got in a limited session to start the week on Thursday because the Bengals are playing the Commanders on Monday Night Football. So this one's tricky, Dwain. He could get up to a full full practice by today or even Saturday, and we'd be feeling a bit better about things. If he does not have an injury designation by Saturday afternoon, I would feel confident putting him back into that probably upside wide receiver 3 conversation. But if we do see him with that questionable tag going to Monday night, Dwain, really, really problematic to the point that I probably wouldn't recommend starting him in most start-sit decisions, because we have seen the Bengals do this madness where he's essentially only active for emergency purposes.
I mean, he was going through the pregame warm-up stuff last week. I know that's nothing super intense, but like that was a positive step. Now we get the limited practice and the first practice of the week. So I'm taking a little bit more of an aggressive approach with T. Higgins. I totally agree with what you're saying. The Monday night thing makes it really tricky. The situation we have with Monday, though, is that we do have 2 games. So you do have some extra potential outs that you could have on your waiver wire. So what I'm going to say is if you go with T. Higgins, and it can be worth it, guys, because he's playing the Commanders. Okay, the Commanders have been absolutely bombshelled by wide receivers over the last 2 seasons. You can go check it out. I'm not going to read it all, but essentially Jamar Chase is going nuclear. We're talking about guys putting up 30-plus fantasy points, or high-end 20-plus fantasy points every time a good wide receiver faces off against this defense. So T. Higgins is in a spot where, like, man, we could get 25 fantasy points out of him, like if he is out there playing. So it's a balance. So you need to make sure you have a backup plan in place. But right now, I've moved him to wide receiver 21 because of this matchup. We'll see what we get today. The practice data really is key, but limited in the first week, in the first day is kind of what I would have expected, given the fact of what we have with the 2-week injury now on the hamstring. But the good news is they have let him sit out the full 2 weeks. So there is a chance he's ready. I will say the Twitter doctors have said that they, they're also, to your point, being very cautious with T. Higgins. You could re-aggravate the injury. We have this history with the Bengals and all the subterfuge and like the decoys, and they'll run T. Higgins out there and not even really be using him. So there's definitely some risk, Ian, but I've got him in a range where just after what I've seen from the Bears quarterback situation, I've got him ahead of DJ Moore. I've got him 2 spots ahead of Drake London. I've got him ahead of Stephon Diggs. I got him a little bit ahead of Tank Dell, Amari Cooper, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. So I think if he plays, like, there's definitely a boom case for him. But it all comes down to how you feel about. There's also a major bust factor. So I'll probably end up moving him a little bit down. I'm going to wait and see what practice says today. But I still want to keep him right around that borderline wide receiver 2 at worst, because the Commanders, man, it's very alluring.
And look, Higgins, this is obviously nothing new. He's dealt with a hamstring injury to some degree in every single season since 2019, even going back to his days at Clemson. But with that said, Dwain, I mean, I'm looking at it right now, 2020, 16 games, 2021, 14, another 16 games, 12 games last year. Like, if there is someone who has had a history with soft tissue injuries, has gotten right and has come back and managed to go back out there and do big things, it has been T. Higgins. So looking at those 2 Monday night games, Jaguars, Bills, Commanders, and Bengals, again, if you are trying to find that emergency plan, Dwain, I would think Andre Yoshivas would probably be the guy you want, because if Higgins is out, he's going to step into a full-time role in that great matchup. Otherwise, I feel like we're kind of flipping a coin on a Bills receiver, or God forbid, playing Gabe Davis. I mean, that's not what we're trying to do on Monday night, Dwain. We're trying to have a good time.
Yeah, so I think Yoshivas is a really good call. I'm just looking them up right now. So he's available, and he's only rostered in 10% of Yahoo leagues. So 90% of the time, like in the leagues you guys are playing in, Yoshivas is going to be out there. That is a really great call. Great backup plan. You still get the same matchup that we just talked about, right, against the Bengals. The other potential backup plan, if you've got him in a flex, would be Gesicki. He's not in a full-time role, but we have seen with Higgins out on a per route basis that Joe Burrow's been very willing to target Gesicki. So if Yoshivas isn't there, I would say Gesicki if it is a flex and you're allowed to put tight end into the flex position. I do agree on the Bills is probably more of a dart throw, and the name that we would want to get to there would be Khalil Shakir. I will say right now Shakir is available, and he's rostered in 64% of Yahoo leagues. So if you play in a smaller league, there's a chance that Shakir is out there, and he would be the guy I would prefer over Yoshivas, but that would be my top 2. It would be Shakir if you're in a smaller league. If you're playing in a sicko league, Yoshivas is the name you're going to have to turn to as your backup plan to T. Higgins.
And a good note from Dwain, just when you're going through your lineups on Sunday morning to make sure you have guys like T. Higgins and then Sunday Night Football dudes in your flex to give you that much more, wait for it, flexibility if any chaos does break out. So the other big wide receiver news to go through, guys, CeeDee Lamb did say his ankle is good despite starting the week off with the DMP and then getting a limited practice in on Thursday. So per CeeDee, he just said it was feeling a bit sore on Wednesday, so he took the day off. So Dwain, really doesn't sound like anything overly serious. And just in terms of, having looked at the Cowboys and every other team's injury reports over the past, half decade at this point, the Cowboys are a team where we kind of see these early week DMPs, and it usually isn't all that problematic as long as we are hearing that the injury isn't of concern. So personally, I'm not adjusting the ranks down at all, but I'm not exactly thrilled to be investing in anyone outside of CeeDee Lamb in this Cowboys offense ahead of a tough Sunday afternoon matchup against the Ravens.
Yeah, my question is, are the Ravens still a tough matchup, or have they just had a bad run of luck in the first two games? You play against Patrick Mahomes, who had a great game, not a great game, but a really good game, in week one, considering how down passing has been. But the Ravens are giving up a lot of yards through the air. So I'm really interested to see what happens here. Does that revert back to more what we've seen over the last several years? Typically, I'm going to lean into a multi-year trend when you've got stability on the defensive side of the ball as far as, the players. Now we've got a little bit of a difference with your former defensive coordinator being gone, so that could have an issue. That he's in Seattle now, so it'll be interesting to see with the Ravens. But I do agree with your main point here. I'm not super excited. Ferguson, if he does play, feels like he's going to be very limited, and honestly feels like they'll be rushing him back a little bit. So with how Schoonmaker played good enough, let's not risk it with Ferguson. Jerry, come on, let's think a little bit longer term here. Mike McCarthy, Ferguson is key part of your plans for this season on offense. Let's not get wild and crazy here and let this guy re-injure himself worse, and you have to have him off the team for multiple games. The Brandon Cooks thing is the only one, Ian. I would say he's dart throw, double flex league. You got two flex spots. Brandon Cooks becomes a dart throw, but I can't tell you each week. His target shares are all over the place. One week he's going to have 20%. The next week he has a 10. We've seen that he's faded against man coverage over the last 2 years. Typically something that's telling us a player's near their end from a fantasy football perspective. So Cooks is only a dart throw.
I'll be honest, man. I was going through my ranks yesterday, and as much as I do believe in myself, I like to go look at the rest of the consensus ranks and see if I'm drastically off on anyone. Maybe we want to squeeze that gap just a little bit, depending on the confidence level. But one bigger gap that I didn't squeeze, Dwayne, because I think I'm freaking right out here, is Dak Prescott. My QB 17. Everyone else has him ranked QB 12 or higher. I mean, why are we giving Dak the benefit of the doubt ahead of guys like Sam Darnold, like Geno Smith, like Derek Carr, who are all playing better football? And let's face it, I think for right now, playing in better real life offenses as well.
Well, I think it's because you're looking back at Dak Prescott for his career. I mean, he's in this offense for multiple years now. He's had one playmaker in CeeDee Lamb for multiple years now. And I think you're leaning into really a larger sample size. The question is, again, are the Ravens really this bad on defense, or is that just a 2-game sample that we're going to look back on and be like, oh yeah, the Ravens are still the Ravens on defense? So, I mean, I get what you're saying, but ultimately, whenever I look, at Dak right now, I think he's a low end QB1. He's in that range. It can be really hard to make calls on some of these players, but I'm still starting Dak, over a lot of these other guys. Who are the names you named? I'm looking at your ranks now. Who you've got? You
Donald,
do have Dak at 17.
Derek
so
Carr, Geno.
Yeah, so I mean, you've got Brock Purdy without Deebo, maybe without Kittle, and we know he's without CMC. I'll take Dak. Dak's shown me he can win with just CeeDee Lamb. I'll take Dak over Brock Purdy. Yeah. I mean, Dak's
if the Commanders
that
the
he
worst
can do
defense in the league, we're talking about the second worst probably in LA.
Yeah, I get it.
Dak's got career worst numbers.
When has Brock Purdy shown us that he can actually win when he doesn't have all of his weapons? You've even talked about this. You've talked about the potential fraudster that we have when he doesn't have Deebo and some of these other guys. So I think it's a close call. I think it's closer than what you're saying. I get where you're coming from. I think it really does all come down to, are the Ravens what we've seen for the first 2 weeks, or are they really more what we've seen the last few years?
Yeah. I'm just saying we're one more bad performance from Dak away from everyone kind of pointing out the numbers and saying, yeah, he's having the worst season of his career right now. I don't think it's all on Dak. I think the offensive line isn't as elite as it usually is. And I think there's only one place to go with the football. And that one place is still getting back into the swing of things after holding out for the entire month of August. But again, I tend to think the Ravens are a bit more real still on defense than you do. I guess we'll find out on Sunday in Jerry World, where hopefully the Cowboys can snap that 2-game skid after winning, 16 straight games at home before that. What a time to be a Cowboys fan. So other wide receiver news, though, everyone, some full practice players who, again, we are accordingly expecting to play. Amon-Ra St. Brown, DK Metcalf, Josh Downs making his triumphant return. That will be fun to see in Indy. Also, Broncos wide receivers Devon Vele, Josh Reynolds, and Steelers rookie Roman Wilson. More limited in practice, should be playing because, again, they got in a limited session on Thursday, but keep at least a slight eye on them. Nico Collins dealing with hip and foot injuries. Started off the week with that DMP, but again, back at practice, and last week he was already dealing with something as well. Rome Odunze as well, continuing to play through the knee issue, and Tyler Lockett with a thigh. Now, Dwayne, we do have several wide receivers not practicing and accordingly expecting to miss this one. A.J. Brown with the hamstring injury, Cooper Kupp with the ankle, Deebo Samuel with the calf, Keenan Allen with the heel, Josh Palmer with the elbow and calf issue, and Jordan Addison with the ankle injury as well. So no big surprises. I will say, though, Dwayne, Keenan Allen, again, looking like he's going to be out of the picture. What is the confidence level, if any, with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze right now? Because if we are going to get Caleb in this passing game catching their stride, I would think it's going to be against what largely seems like an average Colts defense. I mean, in the Bears defense, Titans defense looks better than we thought, and that Texans pass rush, man, no joke at all. So if Caleb is going to get going here this weekend against the Colts, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, are they winning some start-sit tiebreakers for you?
I mean, potentially. Ultimately, I mean, the whole offense got a downgrade in the utilization report this week because we just need to see Shane Waldron figure out how to call a game, right? So I can't even tell you how much to put it on Caleb Williams, but we have seen rookie quarterbacks struggle in the past. So I'm willing to get the guys in my lineup, Ian, but overall, I want to see a different signal from the entire offense. There's a systemic problem going on here. DJ Moore is still getting his targets. The guy has a 30% target share through 2 games, so it's really hard to bench him, to your point. Like if you're playing in a 3 wide receiver league, like there's no way DJ Moore is not in your lineup. Like you guys might send me some screenshots where I say, okay, fine, DJ Moore's not in that lineup. For the most part, though, you're going to have him. Rome, I'm waiting, Ian. You got to be playing in a sicko league. If you're in a sicko league, then yes, Rome Odunze is a guy that you could get, on like maybe you're playing in a league with 12 teams and you got 2 flex players. Rome Odunze might be one of them.
I'm in a 14-team league with 3 flex players, Dwayne. I can't tell you Rome Odunze will be starting. So come on, Rome. Figure this out for your boy. All right, some tight end injury notes. We just cannot have nice things, guys, because 49ers tight end George Kittle added to the injury report with a hamstring on Thursday, and he is a DNP and now seemingly at risk of missing a game that is already without Puka Nacua, already without Cooper Kupp, Christian McCaffrey, and Deebo Samuel as well. So I will say, Dwayne, it was a weird thing on the injury report because we also had Charvarius Ward get added as a DNP on Thursday, and Nick Bosa with a rib injury got added as a limited session on Thursday. So I don't know what they were doing at practice that kind of caused all this to happen on Wednesday or whatever it was. But I do wonder if because you have, again, 3 of your more important players popping up, if it could have been more maintenance than anything. But then again, with the way the 49ers obviously had the Christian McCaffrey debacle going on, the Jordan Mason stuff, I don't think they're really trying to hide anything on the injury report these days. So thoughts on Kittle and, man, just what to make of this, because I remember the stat from last week from Dr. Edwin Porras where I think that was more so for wide receivers. But when players do pop up with a DNP and a hamstring injury on Thursday or Friday, man, very, very likely, I want to say it was 80% plus that they do not wind up playing on Sunday.
Yeah, we just saw that with A.J. Brown. So, I mean, we've seen these things come to play just recently. So, no, not ideal. And, man, you hate it. If you drafted Kittle, like this is the game. This is the game. No Deebo, no CMC against the Rams secondary, which you just called out rightfully so, for Brock Purdy. Man, like it's a huge blow. Like I had Kittle as my number 1 tight end for the week, and I had him inside my top 40 players. Like I was expecting Kittle to essentially put up low end wide receiver 1 numbers this week. Yeah. I think like 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, like could have been the outcome for George Kittle. So Gonna have to definitely back off of that. I moved him down the ranks a little bit yesterday. I'm probably gonna have to back off of him even further than that. But again, we'll just have to monitor the injury reports, and folks can head to FantasyLife.com. We will be updating the projections and rankings throughout the day, through the weekend, to get you guys through, so you'll know exactly how we're feeling about these players.
By the way, that Evan Porras stat, great follow, by the way, at FB Injury Doc. It was actually wide receivers specifically popping up as an LP or DMP on the injury report on a Friday. And yeah, only 25% ended up playing. So not good.
And Kittle was on the show wide receiver, Hartitz. That's the takeaway. He's a wide receiver. Kittle's a wide receiver. Netflix knows it.
He is. Okay, so last point I want to bring up here, someone that we mentioned this week, but I know someone that the big boss man, Matthew Berry, has really been hyping up a lot over there with NBC Sports. Jordan Whittington, Dwain, or Jorduka Whitting Kupp. I cannot believe I actually got that pronunciation right. Let's go, team. But yeah, man, no Puka Nacua, no Cooper Kupp. Look, if we're going to look at the remaining Rams wide receivers and say who's going to be the guy getting the short design stuff, who's going to have the guy that has the next gen stats route tree that looks like Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua, I think DeMarcus Robinson could still have some good games and stuff. But if someone's going to have a major role change, Dwayne, and if someone is going to be gobbling up targets, I think it could be Jordan Whittington at this point.
Yeah, like if you're someone that likes to invest in, government bonds, maybe you're a coin collector. I don't know. Like, just start DeMarcus Robinson. Like, he's your floor play. But if you're like the person that's more likely to be like, I'm trying to find the next big thing in crypto, right? I'm trying to find the next coin that's going to go off. Jordan Whittington's your play. You're looking for the get rich quick scheme, and if you're looking to have a home run come out of nowhere in this week to help you win your matchup, and you just get to boast a little bit to your league mates, Jordan Whittington, Ian, is the name. And hat tip to you. You were on it even earlier in the week, talking about it for some of our teams that we managed together and trying to throw him on the lineup because we've got a lot of injuries, and he's the kind of guy that, okay, we might completely miss. We could whiff. It could be 1 point. But he's going to give you a better shot at 25 than what you're going to get from DeMarcus Robinson. And so it really comes down to your thought process. But in a very small sample that we had last week, once Cooper Kupp left the game, Ian, again, very small sample size. We're talking about 2 drives, guys, but 91% route participation, and he got the slot work. Okay, so if there is a coordinator in the league that can be a force multiplier to a wide receiver that gets to be in motion and be in the slot and all those things, it's Sean McVay. And so I do think that Whittington, there's a good chance that he is going to play that role this weekend. No, guys, we're not going to call him the Cooper Kupp, but he's getting to play the Cooper Kupp role, and he might be able to give you 70% of what Cooper Kupp gives you.
And guess what? That's a lot of fantasy points if you want to
That's go a lot.
And take that 70%
I probably need to amend
that.
He might be able to give you 50%, and it would still be good.
Still a lot. Okay, with the rest of the tight end injuries we got going on, guys. Dalton Schultz, Greg Dulcich, Adam Troutman for the Broncos, all back to full practices. As Dwayne mentioned before, Jake Ferguson seemingly on track to suit up, but he still has only been limited, as has Mike Gesicki. But again, he was kind of already on the report last week, I believe, as well, so not too concerned there. Taysom Hill is back to a limited practice. I know that was a big storyline about him having to go to the hospital after the game with a chest injury. He is good to go, so you love to see that. And yeah, otherwise, Panthers tight end Tommy Trumbull limited. We also have Evan Ingram and David Njoku, both once again fully expected to miss this one. So I will say again, deep leagues where you're just screwed. And hey, I'm in some of those. You guillotine leagues and this and that. Brenton Strange, the Jaguars tight end too, actually did have a fairly full-time role. So if you are absolutely desperate on the waiver wire, he's at least someone that's going to be out there in an offense under Doug Peterson that we know loves to involve the tight end. So last thing with injury, guys, want to go through some just offensive line and defensive notes that again are a little more pertinent than usual. So Browns offensive line continues to be banged up, but they should be getting Jack Conklin back this week at least. He's practicing in full. Meanwhile, DeJuan Jones and Jedrick Wills both limited. Also keep an eye on Myles Garrett, not practicing all week. Didn't have a designation after missing some time last week as well, but yeah, obviously Browns not quite nearly as scary when Myles Garrett is not on the field. Buck safety Antoine Winfield and defensive tackle Vita Vea not practicing, so slight boost for the Broncos if you can, get behind that at all. Also, the Lions could be missing 3 secondary guys, Terry and Arnold. Ifeatu Melifonwu. I think I kind of actually got that. And then Ennis Rakestraw, all now practicing with various ailments. So keep an eye on those guys. And then finally, again, mention those 49ers injuries where, Travarius Ward and Nick Bosa both being banged up and midweek additions, not ideal as well. So I think the one point here to make, Dwain, is that in Cleveland, man, offense has not looked good for these first 2 weeks. A little bit of a bounce back in week 2. But, when you don't have your starting offensive tackles, man, that is going to make life tough. So if there was going to be a passing game and just an offense in general, who could get healthier at the line of scrimmage and start to at least look like a more competent offense overall, I do think the Browns could qualify.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've got a great matchup, against the Giants. So they would probably want to come out and establish the run. I mean, you might just want to run it every play with the way Deshaun Watson has looked. So I think there is this opportunity here for them to kind of get right, though, as an offense, if they've got their tackles. So, yeah. Jerome Ford is an interesting one, though, Ian. Not getting all the playing time that we hope for. So it's still a tricky backfield to figure out who you would want to play, even if we've got all the offensive line healthy in this good matchup.
Hopefully is condensed. Not hopefully, but Pierre Strong is probably going to be missing this game. So maybe just down to Ford and Foreman, but again, could be more 50-50 than anything there. So that is the injury stuff, guys. And now let's get to everyone's favorite segment of the week. That's right. It's time for some bold predictions. And Dwain, we were 4-0 in week 1, and now it's just time to get on to week 3 without even mentioning what happened last week. Nah, I'm just kidding. We'll go through it. But DJ Moore did not go for 120 yards and a touchdown, Dwain. He went for 53. You did get one that we will call a W. You said James Conner going for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 124 and 1. Maybe could have had 2 if he didn't fumble, but he was trying to be a good teammate and got Trey McBride into the end zone. Meanwhile, your boy over here said Jalen McMillan and Terry McLaurin were going to have big games, and lo and behold, they did not. So I'm going to blame you for letting me hype up Jalen McMillan and Terry McLaurin, just not take the personal responsibility, but okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. So what are we now? 5-3 on the season. Could be, worse, could be better. But again, either way, we are on to week 3. And with that, Dwain, let's talk about that 49ers-Rams game a little more. And a certain wide receiver who is healthy for the 49ers, Brandon Aiyuk, looking pretty well set up here.
Yeah, man, 29% target share and 45% air yard share in games without Deebo Samuel over the last 3 seasons. That's 293 routes. So we actually have a pretty good sample. Guys, those sound really nerdy. You're like, what do those things even mean? They mean that you're a high-end wide receiver 1. Brandon Aiyuk is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. The only challenge is he has an offense that wants to run the ball a lot, and you've got multiple other mouths to feed. You're not going to have that this weekend, and you have a matchup against the Rams. He is an absolute freaking smash play, taking the overs anywhere I can find them, Ian, as far as, just looking for bets on props, and I'm definitely getting him into my fantasy lineups.
I'm going to be taking Chuba Hubbard, Panthers RB1 for over 100 yards and a touchdown. I think everyone's paying attention to the rightful bumps for Deontay Johnson and Thielen with Andy Dalton now under center. But let's not forget, guys, Chuba, top 10 rated missed tackles for us this year. He's still got some really nice underlying numbers. They've just been getting blown out. So when you actually see that 20 to 15 touch discrepancy between him and Miles Sanders, it's actually been 17-9 in favor of Chuba during the first 3 quarters. I still believe he's owning this backfield with a 60-40, maybe 70-30 advantage. And going up against the Raiders defense has not looked great against the run. 6 most rushing yards this season allowed to opposing running backs. I do like Chuba finally giving us one of these nice performances to start the season with Jonathan Brooks on IR. I think a lot of us expected more from just a few short weeks ago. So I got Chuba, and Dwain, you got another running back who hasn't exactly been booming early, but the role he has looks pretty good ahead of a Monday Night Football matchup.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Zach Moss against the Commanders. 65% or higher snap rate the first 2 games. We thought this was going to be a split backfield between him and Chase Brown. It isn't. This backfield belongs to Zach Moss. We've got the kind of matchup that we're looking for. We've got a really high point total, the highest on the weekend, going to the Bengals. We've talked about their aerial attack and how much we like it. Well, guess what? When you're moving the ball up and down the field, Ian, you're going to have the opportunities to do what? Score touchdowns when you get inside the 5-yard line. So give me the player in a full-time role in an offense that we love this weekend. This is a layup, in my opinion, even though I called him a sicko start. I got to call him a sicko start because he's so far down the ranks in the fantasy industry. I felt like I was kind of cheating a little bit with that, but hey, I'm going to take it where I can get it. But Zach Moss, I say 120 yards and he scores a touchdown.
I love that call and do agree that, again, as much as it might seem like a sicko start, you could argue must start in this spot. I'm going to get really sick here, though. Jacoby Myers, give me 8 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. Picking 2 players from the Raiders and Panthers matchup. What could go wrong, Dwayne? But with Jacoby, look, he's still out there running around almost 100% of Minshew's dropbacks. And while it has been the Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers shows, still a 2-week sample, and I still maintain that Jacoby is very good. And now he gets to face a Panthers defense that looks like the single worst group in the league. So again, like, I understand, I'm not ranking them ahead of Devontae Bowers. Like, they should be projected ahead of them, but especially if you guys are out there in those DraftKings streets, trying to just get an edge on the field. Look, people expect Adams and Bowers and, Deontay and all these guys from this game to be going off. So if you stick with those offenses, but just go with some different full-time players who we still like Chuba, like Jacoby, I do think there's some, nice allure there in, again, large field tournament sort of setting. So bounce back game for the third banana and a passing game that otherwise has impressed so far. So Jacoby Myers, Zach Moss, Chuba Hubbard, and Brandon Ayuk, take them to the bank this week, everyone. And yeah, otherwise, best of luck to you guys in week 3. Dwayne and I will be back Sunday night breaking down all the action. And then, back to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday goodness, 9 a.m. Eastern, only right here on the Fantasy Life Show. So for Dwayne, for producer Kelsey, for producer Matt, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning to the Fantasy Life Show. And until next time, take care, everybody.